boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This is Tough Talk Tonight, brought to you by Heavy Bag Boxing. This is the show that has hosted everyone from Sugar Ray Leonard to Keith One-Time Thurman. This.
Welcome to another episode of Tough Talk Tuesday. As always, I'm your host, Lucas Biggers. Alongside me is going to be Rob and James. How's it going, guys?
Good.
All right, let's jump right into it. Warrington left no doubts with the Kiko Martinez in the rematch, guys. How impressed were you? It was a shutout in most people's eyes. I think you two really aren't going to disagree with that.
No, it was a vicious fight for Kiko Martinez. Unfortunately, he got cut up pretty bad. He was bleeding all over the face and everything. So Warrington really took it to him. So it was very impressive for Warrington. I feel really bad for Kiko because, he finally got his title. He finally was on the upswing in his career, and he just got smashed. So I really feel bad for Kiko, but Warrington did what he was supposed to do in that bout. I just don't like what he said after the fight, what Josh Warrington said after the fight, when he basically said, speaking of on Eddie Hearn, he said, Eddie Hearn doesn't exactly like me so much right now because of my style as of late. But when I do what I'm supposed to do, then this happens. I mean, that's basically admitting that you don't fight. You're not motivated to fight that way every fight. And that's why you lost the title in the first place. And I just don't respect fighters that do that.
Okay.
So you're saying he holds back in other fights, or is he just not being prepared in other fights?
It could be a combination, though. But either way, if it is at this level, you can't afford that. I mean, the exact quote he said was, let me see. Yeah, pretty much like I said. The quote he said is Eddie Hearn doesn't like me that much right now because of my previous bouts. But when I come to fight and bring it like I did in this bout, these are the results, is basically what he's saying. And again, I don't like that in a fighter because his last fight was horrendous. This fight, Kiko, beat a rival of his and to earn the title. This was supposed to be Kid Glee or whatever his name is. He was supposed to be in this bout, which is a big rival to Josh Warrington, and he got beat by Kiko.
You're talking about Galahad, Kid Galahad.
Gallahan, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't like when a fighter sits there in the midst to not fighting at their full potential every fight.
Well, I mean, that quote made it sound like he likes it more when he's aggressive. Not necessarily that he's not bringing it, but it's just a different style that he comes with. That's the way I took that. But
not only that, they seemed like they were pretty tight after the fight. I mean, he ran into Eddie Hearn's arms and gave him the big hug and carried him around the ring, and who knows what else he did. But I was thinking you were going to go to the quotes where he said that he wanted to go have a cheeseburger and then some pudding and wanted to go home and have sex with his wife because it'd been 4 weeks. Like, kid's being honest.
Yeah, but
can't blame him for any of those.
I've never heard of a boxer say that,
but we all know
if that's the way he felt, and go for it. It's cool.
No, that's true, but he probably couldn't do much of that, being that after the fight they showed X-rays. He broke his jaw,
and which was posted by Eddie Hearn on like Instagram or something.
Yeah.
Actual X-ray of his jaw. I've never seen that either. This is all new, uncharted territory.
I thought they did that for Victor Ortiz when Josecito Lopez broke his jaw, but maybe I'm remembering wrong.
Well, no, but in this particular fight with Martinez and Warrington, it was a rough one, and I really felt that Warrington's forehead was inflicting a lot of damage to the eyelashes or to the eye area, just in general, simply because he was coming in and he's really, really subtle with those headbutts. But if you try that with a guy like Mauricio Lara, it's going to be a little different because Mauricio Lara is a puncher and he keeps a good distance. Kiko Martinez couldn't keep him off of him and just couldn't put that jab into play because Warrington was just like right up in him. And so I was hoping that he could tie him up, that he could somehow mitigate that attack. But in the end, especially, the opening round was a rough one for Martinez. Honestly, I saw that Martinez took the belt from Kid Galahad, and I thought, well, let's see. This is kind of one of those things where he's just kind of a sitting duck. I mean, every promoter in the world would come and kind of pluck that one. Of course, it was Matchroom and Eddie Hearn. That's all great. But, I did mention Mauricio Lara. See that trilogy, because that second fight really didn't get settled. No. That second fight ended with a headbutt, I believe, in the first or second round. Is that right? You guys recall that?
That seems right.
That was that one weekend where there was like 3 or 4 different fights that were stopped with headbutts. I think there was one here in California, too. Maybe at the old StubHub Center, or Dignity, as they call it now. A lot of that went on that particular weekend. But, I mean, good for Warrington, champion again. So I'm happy for the guy.
Is Laura who you're wanting to see him fight next there, James?
Mauricio Lara, yeah. Yeah, that'd be awesome. They got one to settle. Because Warrington got stopped the first time. Okay, that was an upset. That was a complete surprise. The second one, obviously, the headbutt. I guess Lara was bleeding, if I remember correctly. He had a really bad gash over one of his eyes. So yeah, let's play that one back.
And Rob, you actually watched this fight? How it being under 130?
Just because I watched it don't mean that I enjoyed it. Okay.
So you didn't enjoy
Good fight.
I
It was a
have
good
to.
card.
I have to make sure I know what I'm talking about when I come on the show.
And yeah, Laura was cut over the left eye in the second by a head clash, so the contest stopped by advice of the ringside doctors, which made it null and void, basically. Draw.
And that was a good card. That was, I guess, in Leeds, England, and super quick. So you're probably ready to go on to the next. But Ebony Bridges took a championship there. So IBF 118. So she's improves to 8-1 on a record, but world title holder there.
And,
you guys know Ebony Bridges?
And when she wins, everybody wins. Everybody wants to see more of Ebony Bridges.
It's a good way to put it.
Well,
Yeah.
well, kudos to her though, professionally, because this was her second attempt at a world title, and she bought it. She bought it. She won by a large margin on the scorecards. She outpointed her opponent and did really well in that fight. So hats off to her, because this time she showed up.
Well, she's not just a pretty face. I mean, I've seen her leave fights pretty battered. I mean, she goes to town. It's not, I'm just here for, publicity or anything like that. She's a fighter through and through.
No, she brings it. You remember that fight? Well, the first one first time I saw her fight was against Shannon Courtney. Yeah, that's the fight where she had that giant shiner that she was very, very proud of. So good for her. But she brings it. And her last fight as well. She won that, but that was a non-title fight. And then finally she gets that next shot. And here she is. She's got a strap. So congratulations to my girlfriend. She's never met me. Never met her. But I can dream, can I? Yeah. I can dream, can I?
Someday. I think that's in everybody's dreams right now, including Eddie Hearns.
Well, you know, just to drag this one on a little bit. Did you guys see the weigh-in?
Oh yeah.
It could be rated R or X.
Her weigh-ins.
NC-17.
Her weigh-ins are always something that you want to watch. Her weigh-ins are always exciting if you're that type of fan, which, as I've stated before and will state again, I think that's what women's boxing needs. They need some of that.
It is.
A lot more of that.
I agree. And if Ebony Bridges was knocking people out ridiculously, I think that would only help the sport that much more. We need our Ronda Rousey, and maybe she can, kind of be that type of figure.
There's a lot of great women fighters out there. I mean, you see what we have coming. I just like to see one of those all-women cards again to really promote that side of the business. Women's fighting is big, and it's action-packed. Yeah, and we should see more of it.
I'm wondering when we're going to see another headlined main event from a ladies card, because we do have one coming up here this weekend, but I'm not sure. Is that the main event? Let's see. Savannah Marshall versus Femke Hermans for Marshall's WBO Women's.
That's in England, right?
Title. That is in England, and it looks to be not televised, at least not here in the States.
That's right. But then the following on the 9th is a pretty decent brawl getting into the women's business. It's Michaela Mayer here in California in an area called Orange County. So good 45 minutes south of Los Angeles. Orange County Event Center, and that is against Jennifer Hahn. Should be a good fight.
Yeah. Looking forward to those too. All right, let's see. We already talked. Let's talk Berchelt. What happened, guys? What happened? I mean, he not only did he not win a round. I mean, he was just broken and beaten. hit the canvas in the third. I mean, is Berchelt broken by Valdez? Is that what happened?
Go ahead.
It might not just be Valdez. It might just be a career fights, career wars. He's been in the wars coming up in his career, and the style that he fights in has to have taken its toll on him. Plus, I think it's the factor that he never really got into the big league, so to speak, until late in his career. After he showed up with that very first war that we all saw on HBO, after we saw that first war, that's when people wanted to see more of him, and he kept winning. But I think he really broke into the big leagues, in my opinion, too late in his career, and he's already done.
Yeah, one of the things I see is that he had that spectacular knockout that he suffered against Valdez. I guess it was about a year ago, and I could check the date on that. But I'm just surprised that they picked a really, really solid opponent for his comeback fight. Completely surprised because this guy is from southern Mexico and he lives in the.
So
I think he's just in the peninsula, like in Yucatan. They have a lot of fights down there. It's a big tourist area. There's a lot of stuff going on down there. Small cards. There's been a couple of decent fights down there over the years, but these are generally Friday night fights, Saturday night fights, and there is a lot of competition down there that he could definitely use, maybe once, maybe twice, 3 times, just to make sure that he's back up to that level. I'm just completely surprised, beyond surprised that they picked such a formidable opponent for this, a guy who's just as big and just as strong, and a lot of good experience in Nakathila, and just the fact that they didn't take the common route where you work your way back up with a gimme and another gimme, and then you find yourself fighting against a good contender on a
right,
maybe a top ranked card, or something that's televised and maybe undercard pay-per-view or whatever it is. They went right with a big test, and it's just way too much too soon. There's a lot of signs there too. One of the boxing pundits that I follow was mentioning that on his way into the arena where he fought here in Vegas, that his legs didn't look good. He's either very stiff when he walks, but I saw that same footage. He looked sick. Hands in his pocket, shoulders shrugged. He didn't look fired up at all. Maybe he was feeling good, and maybe he was great, and maybe he was just chill. That's okay. But I didn't. I took it as looking tired and infirm and weak. And that's the way he fought. He went down with a jab. I guess I think he went down in the 3rd round.
Mm-hmm.
So, his legs simply are not there. No question about it. Legs are shot. But they chose that hard test. Good for them, but it's probably not a good idea. I'm really surprised they did that.
Yeah, I mean, his last fight against Valdez was 13 months ago, and you're going to come back and get right back in the thick of things. You at least have to take one tune-up. I mean,
well, this was a tune-up. This absolutely was a tune-up. The man came into the ring ranked number 2 by ESPN at 130 pounds. Nakathila got killed by Stevenson, okay, in his last fight. He got killed by Stevenson. Berchelt is on that level. When everybody talks about Berchelt, that's the level they put him at, and that's the level he should be competing at this step in his career. So if you want to get back in there, especially being ranked number 2 in the division, then you need a guy to get a tune-up fight, so to speak, against an opponent that got derailed by Stevenson. He should have showed up that night. He didn't show up. That's the issue, period. He didn't show up. I think it has to do with all those great wars that he went into. Confidence is dipped real low right now. He had a huge layoff. So there's absolutely ring rust there as well. But if he can't compete at rank number 2 against a guy like Nakathila, then he can't compete at all.
I don't see how he's ranked at number 2 by anybody. If he hasn't fought in 13 months, how do you rank him number 2? Another thing is that I follow him, and when he started working his way back into the into the gym, he was in really bad shape. His rhythm was off. He was just looking tired and beat in his first few workouts. I think this was just the wrong test for him. Way
James,
too much.
That comes back, doesn't it?
And you know,
at that level,
you're saying that he fought a guy who lost and was, beat bad by a real good opponent. That's only half the story there. The other half is, how is he? Where is he, physically and mentally, and are all his boxing abilities replenished? And they simply aren't. He has legs like Deontay Wilder. He just looked pretty bad.
So James, it sounds like you're agreeing with me. He's a shot fighter.
I'm not disagreeing with you, no.
He's only 30, but you're saying he's ruined now, and he's
got over 40 fights. He's got like 42 fights. Sorry, 41.
So you guys would rather see him retire than keep going like this and possibly get himself really hurt?
Yeah.
Well, you make a good point, is that, he peaked late in his career. He was always considered a good fighter, but that peak did come late. And at his weight class, he was king for a while. And he had a lot of good title defenses. But then came Valdez, and that's the toughest test of his career, and didn't go well.
No, it did not.
And neither did this one. So he's a shot fighter.
Not going to argue with that.
I mean, I don't know, but I wish him the best. I don't want to see him keep going the way he's going, though. Something's got to change, or don't enter the boxing ring again, that's for sure. Now, Rob, you were telling us that they actually have a signed fight now for Kambosos?
Yes, Devin Haney versus George Kambosos, June 5th in Australia.
Now, is that ESPN official? Because I know you got to be ESPN official with you.
That is on ESPN. ESPN, actually, the headline states, hold on a sec. Oh, yeah, sources, George Kambosos, Devin Haney agreed to undisputed lightweight title fight in June. So again, the big thing on this is a few notable things on this. Of course, it's the undisputed title now. It's going to be at Marvel Stadium in Melbourne, Australia. So they actually are going to Australia to fight this one. And it being on June 5th makes it on a Sunday. So that's actually a Sunday. They're actually saying that, let's see, the deal includes a rematch clause if Haney wins in the event that Kambosos loses and exercises his right to a return bout. And then also if Haney loses his next bout afterwards, meaning Haney, this is a surprise. If Haney loses his next bout afterwards, will be co-promoted by Top Rank and Lou DiBella. So that's kind of a power move right there as well.
Okay, so there's only a rematch clause in the case that Kambosos loses.
That's what it says. It includes a rematch clause if Haney wins. And if Haney loses, Haney's next bout would be co-promoted by Top Rank in DeBella. So I don't know if they're throwing that co-promotion there, meaning that there's no rematch clause for Haney if he loses, because if it's a co-promotion with Lou DeBella, who promotes Kambosos, that very well could be the rematch as the next fight, right?
Sounds that way. I mean, I'm glad finally Kambosos has something locked down. I mean, we were talking about this last week, I believe, that it's just hard to get something narrowed down for him, and Lomachenko fell through with everything that's going on in Ukraine. So I'm good, and I'm happy to see it, and it sounds like it's coming up quick. So, I mean, June will be here before we know it.
Well, I mean, so I guess to put it in more perspective, what it sounds like is Lou DeBella wants a 2-fight deal with Devin Haney if he loses. So that to me is just huge. That, that's huge, man. I like this fight. And it being in Australia, Devin Haney is finally taking that chance to prove that he is the best. Because, and that's another question for you. Do you guys think the winner of this bout is actually the best in the division that's very stacked?
Oh, I don't know, It's all about styles, and we haven't seen them all fight each other yet. I want to see some more mixing and matching before I would just crown the winner of this fight.
I think that, the one wild card in there is Lomachenko, and obviously he's off to military duty, which is really sucks because of that whole situation in Ukraine. And there's other boxers tied up in that too. I guess Usyk is working his way out into Poland to return to a boxing camp, which is good. I think that's a really good source of pride for his country. It's going to be very uplifting for that country to have another victory like that, because I feel for them. Man, what a horrible situation. But as far as, the top dog, I think you got him in Kambosos.
You might. I mean, I think Kambosos is overlooked. I think a lot of people see that Teofimo first fight that he had and that big win and think, that was a sham. Teo wasn't ready. Teo punched himself out. And I don't know if that's the case. I think Kambosos is a lot better than what people give him credit for.
No, what happened, I already told you what happened in that fight. Teofimo Lopez fought the wrong fight thinking that Kambosos was a chump. And Kambosos ain't nothing to play with. And Teo found that out the hard way, which, by the way, Teo, if you're listening, stop making excuses.
He's had some pretty weird interviews in the last few. He was at some fights recently where they asked him about that, and he said it was some sort of conspiracy of some sort. And it's like, dude, what the fuck? Just
you seem like you're nuts. Yeah.
You just shut up.
Oh,
stop talking.
That was the
Stop
plan.
talking.
So plan for him to lose the title and then come back. Come on, man. It's all set up. So according to him, Haney's already gonna win, right? Like it's all preset.
Yeah. Well, my question to you guys is, who do you got? You got a long time before this fight. It's coming, but
I honestly don't know. In my mind right now, I think it's a 50-50 fight. I've seen Haney, in some weak legs before against Linares, and I think Kambosos is right now leagues above that version of Linares that Haney fought. I think Haney could lose. I think right now, Kambosos I would favor, but not by much. Rob, let
me get my pen out here.
Look.
Take some early predictions.
Look. This is the thing. Kambosos is extremely underrated by the fact that he fights, but he also knows how to box. Teofimo Lopez found that out the hard way. Devin Haney, though, different animal, different beast. Devin Haney is a masterful class boxer who is in his prime and he's only getting better as he steps up in competition. This is a huge, huge fight for Devin Haney to have a coming out party. That being said, though, look, Kambosos, again, is a guy who's not to be played with. He can box, he can fight. And in this one, I really see Devin Haney looking bad. And not in the sense that he's going to get demolished or beat up or nothing like that. No. I think he's going to run a lot. I think he's going to hold a lot. He's going to be the boring Devin Haney that you've seen in fights coming up before, which is why people thought that he wasn't the greatest out there. And the reason being is because Kambosos is no joke. I don't see Devin Haney at this point right now. I don't see him beating Kambosos. Kambosos is extremely confident. He wanted these big fights. He wanted them for a reason. Kambosos is top dog in my opinion.
Sherman Henson says that he agrees. It is a 50-50 fight. See, it's hard to say when you look at the Tio fight because Tio's so aggressive that really Kambosos was more reacting to what Tio was doing. Whereas Haney likes to sit back a little bit more. And is it going to be a completely different style clash? I mean, it's going to be very hard to predict. But James, since we are, how do you
and I'm the last
so
one here. Kambosos at home. It's going to be hard to beat with a big crowd. And Australians are a lot louder than the English are at Wembley. That's a crazy bunch. So Haney is walking into this really, really tough fight with a tough fighter fighting away from home. I really do want to say this about Devin Haney. I'm glad that he's doing this. I'm glad that he's stepping out of the box, that he's stepping out of his sandbox and flying across or around the earth or as far away as you can go. I think it's a 20-something hour flight, and will face one of the best in the game. And this is the way you do it. You go on the road and you beat the champ in his backyard. This is the way it's done. And if he can do it, and he can, hats off to him. It's just going to be an uphill battle with Kambosos at home. I can't wait. And I hope I don't have to wake up at 2 a.m. to watch this. I think that's what it's looking like, no?
Yeah.
If we're going to see this live.
That's what it sounds like to me.
I doubt that. I think they'll do what they did with Pacquiao, the Pacquiao fight, where we saw it live. Actually, the great thing about the Pacquiao fight, if you remember, Lucas, was it was on ESPN. So that him against Jeff Horn is what I'm talking about. So that was a great fight we got to see on primetime at ESPN on our prime time. So I think they'll actually do that again with this bout. They'll possibly have it on prime time, and it'd be the time difference for Australia to kind of combat things for the U.S. fans, because it's a big fight.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really hoping that there's no hometown cooking. I just want to see a fair fight. I honestly don't care who wins. I think this is going to be a great fight for boxing because it is two of the top in the division. But like you were saying, James, going over to somebody's hometown and winning and bringing the belt back, that's how the greats do it. That's what Crawford did against Ricky Burns. It's something to be admired because it doesn't happen all the time, that's for sure.
Speaking of which, I mean, you got to give your hats off to Tim Tszyu this weekend for coming over to the United States and beating Terrell Gausha. Because he came over, he took a risk, he came over. Yeah, he's the undefeated.
Picked himself up off the canvas, too.
Right. He's the undefeated.
He went down in the first round, was it, or the
Yeah,
third?
it was first.
Okay, yeah. So it was just a quick overhand right that caught him. But Tim Zhu's got a lot of things he's got to correct too.
And I understand that, but Goucher is at this point he's a competitor. I consider him a competitor. He's not a guy to take fights lightly. He's been a competitor to me in every fight I've seen him in. Yeah, he's had some disappointing outings, but he also has had some outings where we predicted him to be beaten badly, and he competed real well. So yeah, Zoo has a lot. He does, but he's a kid at this point in time. He's just a kid. I like the upside. I like what he came over and did. I like the fact that he picked himself off the canvas and pretty much dominated the fight from there.
Yeah, he's really dominant. The one thing in his style is that I see him standing straight up with his chin up. You got to park it, right into the shoulder, and that'll make him a better fighter. That's just for starters. His footwork is a little bit flat as well, but he's well conditioned, so he kind of makes up for that. Other than that, he's got a good punching power. He's got a good jab. He's got a really solid jab. Good guard. He does everything well. He's just, I think he's just a little bit more polished, but that overhand right, it's a real surprise.
Well, I think he's got a lot of that world championship caliber pedigree being coming from his father.
Oh, he got it. He got it.
He has it. Yeah.
No question.
And again, I expected there to be issues. I expected there to be problems. Didn't expect him to get knocked down, but I'm glad he did because we were able to see what he's able to do coming off of a knockdown like that. And I expected it because, again, this is pretty much his debut on the national stage. It's his U.S. debut. So, and the kid, it sounds like he don't want to go nowhere. He wants to stay on this stage. So I can't wait to see what he can bring into this division.
Well, the conversations have been more about the winner of Castaño and Charlo. And I'm thinking that's probably not a good idea at this point.
Not right now, no. This kid needs to work his way into it, unless, which James, it could be the strategy though. They may not be afraid of a loss. They might just want that championship caliber fight at this point in his career to get him that experience. They may not be afraid of taking that chance and losing that fight.
Yeah, I would recommend they be a little bit more cautious in their next opponent. And I think he's still in that developmental stage. 154 has got a lot of good opponents for him.
Well, you know who I'd like to see. Oh, you go ahead. I don't know.
Maybe you're thinking about at 54 is maybe the winner of Lubin and Fundora.
Yep. That's exactly what I was going to say. That's who I would like to see.
Seems to be a little bit more of a logical route.
Lubin Fundora, man, that's a sleeper. I don't think a lot of common fans will be watching that one, but it's going to be a good fight.
Well, that's this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's as far as the timing goes, it's perfect. So they're on the same schedule at the same pace. And if they can make that, and either one, because both Lubin and Fundora are good fighters, that's in itself is a good matchup. But I think that's a safe path for them. And at 54, there's a lot of other fighters, but he's definitely in the developmental stage. He's like Berlanga, just needs a little bit more time. And I don't see why they shouldn't play it safe anyway. Everyone else does it. It's boxing. It's just part of the sport. You kind of pick and choose your way up the ladder, and when you get there and you're at the top, then you know. So I have no problem with it.
Yeah, next weekend's got that pretty stacked there. You got the Lubin Fundora, Ryan Garcia's return, of course Golovkin over in Japan. So next weekend we'll definitely have some predictions to go over. That's for sure. Rosado's facing Shane Mosley Jr.
And what's the date on that?
That's the 9th.
Whoa.
Yeah, so that's next.
Yeah,
weekend.
I didn't see that.
That's next weekend. Yeah, that's there's a lot of good fights coming up on the 9th. That they're all kind of competing with each other, but well,
I mean, yeah,
not Golovkin because that's going to be a different time zone. But.
Yeah, I mean, just to run it down for you, like you're saying, Lucas, the Ryan Garcia fight, which is on DAZN. On the undercard, you'll see Gabe Rosado versus Shane Mosley Jr. on that undercard. You also then have Triple G fighting Mererta on DAZN, it says as well. So I guess they're having a dual.
Well, the
matchup that day.
DAZN is going to be earlier in the day, obviously. You got Golovkin versus Murata. That's going to take place in Japan.
In Japan, yeah.
Ryan Garcia's return is in San Antonio, and Rosado will be on that undercard.
Right. But then I'm just reading now, you also got a tilt on ESPN Plus with Michaela Mayer that James was talking about
earlier, yeah.
And then you also got the Maloney brothers on that card. As well for ESPN, both Andrew and Jason Maloney. And I don't like the lower weights, but I do like those kids. Those kids come to bring it in each and every fight that I've seen of theirs.
I believe that Fuchs, the the woman that I brought up with about the
Virginia Fuchs,
yes, yeah. Her pro debut is also going to be on that ESPN card as well.
Yes.
But yeah, then we have of course, after all that we just said, then you have the Lubin Fedor on Showtime, and then Tony Harrison versus Sergio Garcia on the undercard of that. So, man, the 9th is a hard-hitting boxing weekend.
Yeah, you're probably going to have to wean some of those out, though, because I'll tell you right now, I'm not totally looking forward to that bout that the Erickson Lubin fight is good, but the Tony Harrison fight I'm not looking forward to, okay?
Tony Harrison's entertaining. What's wrong?
He's a good boxer.
Yeah. What's
yeah,
wrong?
Okay.
You don't like Tony Harrison?
I don't like Tony Harrison at all. I thought Charlo got robbed in that first fight. Absolutely got robbed in that first fight.
No, I had Harrison up. And he showed really, really great boxing skills. That second, that comebacker, he was not looking very good, and Charlo really was very, very dominant. But first fight, that's some really, really good skill for boxing.
Yeah, Tony was dialed in that first fight, if you ask me. But Rob, you're not a fan. I get it. I don't know why you hating on Tony Harrison, but maybe he's got to prove something to you. I only wish that we had some of those, if they could have been spread out maybe and gave to us this weekend. This weekend is pretty thin.
It's pretty off.
Yeah.
I mean, you do have some fights this weekend to look at, but there's not really any names at all on this.
Nothing to draw big attention.
Yeah, and then like you said, the female bout is a main event card, and that's in Newcastle, England. So yeah, you really don't have anything to look forward to this weekend. So I'm surprised they didn't spread that out.
Yeah, I don't know. Boxing seems to like to compete with itself, but it just.
I mean,
no, the one thing that you guys mentioned was Sergio Garcia. Who is Harrison fighting?
Sergio Garcia.
Is that the Argentine that fought Chavez Jr. a few years ago?
Let me see, because I was wondering.
Maybe that's not a Garcia, but I'm looking it up here. I haven't found anything on it, but I'm just wondering which Garcia Harrison's fighting. There is another Spaniard out there.
I mean, if you look at it on the night, you got telecasts from all major networks that cover boxing. You have DAZN, and they have 2 cards that day. You have ESPN, and then you have Showtime.
And you know what? I mentioned it last weekend, and now I understand why there's no boxing really this weekend. This weekend is a 2-day WrestleMania. So Saturday and Sunday both have main events. Boxing probably did not want to compete with WrestleMania and said, we'll push some of that off. So
really,
yeah,
WrestleMania.
Yeah, I mean,
if you said Super Bowl,
it gets a lot of views.
If you said Super Bowl,
I understand that. And then you got to remember that you got the Spence pay-per-view the weekend after that, Easter weekend on the 16th, on a Showtime pay-per-view with Errol Spence versus Ugas. So they don't really want to put anything to compete with that. However, I do want to know, guys, that Erickson Lubin bout is definitely an undercard, or could have been an undercard draw for that Spence Ugas fight.
Could have been.
Why didn't they?
We talked about this. They don't build undercards anymore. If there is a decent undercard, they save that for its own main event. And, we're lucky if it's just not a pay-per-view on its own.
Well, listen to this card. It's a decent card on the 16th. And I know we're stretching here, but we got to come up with some future topics because that's where it's at right now. But that would have been a great bout on this card. Listen to this card. You have the Errol Spence versus Ugas. Okay. You have Emidis Dayonis in a 12-round fight for a title fight in the undercard, which Dayonis, they're very heavy on. But then it gets real interesting because then you have Isaac Cruz versus Gamboa. So you have that on the undercard.
Hey, I like that. That's a good
You
fight.
also have Francisco Vargas on the undercard being featured. But then get this fight. Cody Crawley versus Josito Lopez is on that card. So you get to see Josito Lopez on there. Why? I think a great, and then you have Brandon Lee against Zachary Ochoa. So those are 2 welterweights that are up and coming. But I think that would have been a great night to put that fight on there. Fondora versus Lubin.
I mean, that would have sealed the deal for making it worth pay-per-view, I think. But as far as a pay-per-view goes, I think this is probably the best card we've had in quite some time, from the sound of it.
Well, you mentioned Bandito Vargas is on that card, and he's fighting a kid. His last name is Valenzuela. Mm-hmm. Is that still listed there?
Jose Valenzuela, yeah.
I believe he's trained by the Benavides brothers, except that he's up in Seattle or fighting out of Seattle. I'm not sure where he trains. I'm not really sure if he trains up there or not, but he's pretty exciting. And he's a really, really hard hitter. He's been on a few cards recently. So what I'm saying is that this may be Fernando Vargas' last outing because he's been in a lot of wars. And
well,
he's
it's
definitely
not Fernando, it's Francisco Vargas.
That's not El Bandito.
No.
Okay, good. That's what I understood. All right, perfect.
No, Francisco Vargas.
That's such a relief.
Yeah, Bandito is done, I think. After his last fight, I think he's done. Remember, he lost to Isaac Cruz pretty bad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that may have been it for him.
So, the Sergio Garcia, is this the guy that just recently lost to Fendora?
I think the last guy...
Is that who's going to be facing Harrison this next weekend?
Well, I was just looking up Harrison, and there's nothing listed for him. But I did see something on maybe one of the websites for either ESPN or whoever is holding that card. But it's just not listed yet. It shows his last fight. It was against Perella, and obviously before that it was the Charlo fights that he had. So it's interesting. I'm not sure who this is.
Hold on, I can tell you. So Sergio Garcia is 33-1.
Yeah, I'm wondering.
Let me see.
Yeah, he lost to Fundora, and that was it. And that was back in December. But that's really his only.
Big fight anyway, though.
He beat Ted Cheeseman.
Wow.
But other than that, yeah, that's the only other person that you would probably know is Fundora. And he fought Fundora close from the looks of it. I do not remember really that fight very well, but 13-15 on one card. That's pretty good. I don't know. Kind of eager to see him now.
Yeah, I mean, we got some good fights coming up. So I apologize, James. It is Venezuela who is unbeaten against former world champion Francisco El Bandito Vargas.
Yeah, I was thinking that was it.
It is him.
And what card is this? Is this a PBC card? Is this a
PBC?
Okay.
That's he's on the undercard, right? For the
the undercard is sent you guys. Cruz versus Gamboa, Venezuela versus Francisco Vargas, and Crowley versus Josito Lopez. Which Cody Crowley is unbeaten. He's an unbeaten fighter. Josito Lopez, as you know, is an exciting fighter. So I think that would be a good matchup. Venezuela is an undefeated, unbeaten fighter. I'm with James on that one, though. I'm hoping this is not an El Bandito beatdown, but if so, we could possibly see his retirement that night. Cruz versus Gamboa is going to be action-packed. That's a nice card. That's a real nice card.
Does Gamboa still have that fight in him? Can Gamboa hang?
I mean, to be honest, we could see 3 people retire that night. Okay. We can see Josito Lopez be done. We can see Vargas be done, and Gamboa.
Josito has got a lot of gas in that tank.
Trying to see.
There's no question there. But my concern is Gamboa. He just hasn't had that spark in the last few fights. I'm thinking he's at that point. And he's up against a really hard hitter. Yeah. And the harder you hit his opponent, the harder he comes back. So it's going to be a rough one for him.
Yeah, I mean, Gamboa hung tough with Davis, but I think he's been on the downhill slide for quite some time now. Part of it was spending too much time outside of the ring. He had that super long layoff that definitely didn't help anything.
Surprisingly, I disagree with you guys on this one. I think this is Cruz's fight where he needs to show us what he's got. Okay, I think he honestly needs to show us that he has the ability to put away a guy like Gamboa, because Gamboa is crafty, and Cruz so far, granted he's a tough SOB, he's a one-trick pony.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that one. He coming forward is going to have to find Gamboa, and Gamboa's an educated fighter. If he's got legs, if he's got any legs left, it's going to be a long night for Isaac Cruz trying to zero in on him and fight at the right distance. Half step back and lateral movement for Gamboa could be pretty interesting. Could be a pretty interesting matchup there. Hopefully, Gamboa can also still withstand some of those punches that are coming at him. Cruz goes to the body real well, real effectively, and that might slow down Gamboa. We'll see how that goes. But I really look forward to the Bandito Valenzuela fight because they're kind of the same style. They kind of pitch the same speed over and over.
Well,
and they both like blood.
Well,
I'd like to see it. That's it.
If Isaac Cruz really lost to Tank, I mean, and we see the same Gamboa, right? I mean, Gamboa should be super competitive in this one.
Oh, he lost to Tank. There's no question. He lost to him. You said if.
I don't know. I saw a close fight.
I mean, I think you're right, Lucas. I think Gamboa should be competitive in this fight. I think he really should. Yeah, I like the matchup, but like I said,
clash for Isaac Cruz may be a problem. I mean, you got a Cuban background. If he stays on his horse, Isaac Cruz is in some world of hurt. I mean, he's going to be able to dance around him. But I don't know if Gamboa can do that so much anymore like he used to. I mean, he's fighting on a repaired Achilles tendon, right? I mean, he's not what he once was. His dance legs are not under him anymore, and I think the younger fighter takes this one. But
it's pretty much after
that.
After the Terrence Crawford fight, his career seemed to peter out a little bit. He has some good payday, so it's all right. Yeah, Gamboa.
If Gamboa is looking to make a statement in this fight, look for him to take the fight to the kid early. But then he'll probably lose his momentum quick, probably in round 4. He'll start to lose his momentum, and then Cruz will be able to start to tag him. And that's how it should play out. But again, well, I mean, that's how Gamboa is. That's how he fights. He tries to attack because, remember, going up in his heyday, he was the aggressive fighter. He was the one that everybody feared coming up. And he still has some of that in him. So I think if he's refreshed coming off of an injury, supposedly he's refreshed. We all know he stays in shape. He should you should look to see him have success early on in the fight. And then he probably will tinker away probably after the 4th, and then Cruz will start to tag him. That's how it should play out. But again, Cruz has to prove himself in that fight, in my opinion, not the other way around.
Yeah, as far as skill goes, I mean, Gamboa should have him by leagues, but it's not always skill that wins in the boxing ring. Regardless, I like the fight, and the point now is, okay, let's say Isaac Cruz is able to, or Isaac Cruz is able to really knock him out, make a statement. Does that warrant anything? Does that warrant a rematch with Gervonta Davis?
I don't think that's it.
Especially for he wasn't able to stop Gamboa. If he's able to knock him out, is that?
Here's the problem. Here's the problem, Lucas. Here's the problem. At this juncture, a rematch for Tank Davis versus Isaac Cruz would be Tank looking in the rearview mirror. And his trajectory and his level and where he's at, he don't need that. He don't need to do that at all. So, and Tank is definitely probably moving up or on the trajectory to where he can move up. He's already fought up in weight. Cruz could, in this bout, Cruz needs to establish dominance and proves other than Tank Davis that he's the top dog in this division and he's there to stay for a while. So I don't think people calling out because it, quote unquote, to them was a close fight against Tank, that's not warranted. It's not going to happen. Tank is moving up. Tank is moving up in both competition or in weight. Cruz needs to prove himself that he's the king in this division for a while before he's able to see Tank. And he's probably going to have to be at a higher division.
So you get in a fight where a lot of people see you win. And in order to get a rematch, you have to make huge statements. And even a Gamboa knockout is
I
not
got
enough.
it, James. I got
It's
it.
not
Because the
enough.
only people that see him win are Tank haters. Okay, that's why.
That's not
It's
true.
Tank and Mayweather haters.
That is
That's
not
why.
true. That's not true. I like Tank. I just thought it was a very close fight. That's it. And a lot of people did. There's multiple people here that did. I believe Sakura had it either close or even a win for Isaac Cruz. I believe Javi had it for Isaac Cruz. It is not so clear cut that you guys make it out to be.
I
It's
think
very clear cut.
to me that is no question.
It
No
was
question
very
at all.
clear
Tank
cut.
Davis won that, and then I think the idea of a rematch between Pitbull and Tank Davis is a real non-starter.
No?
No,
I'm
not
pretty-
at all, man.
I'm pretty sure it was
No.
a fan-friendly fight. I mean, I don't know. I guess right now I'm the only guy in the panel that wants to see it again, but...
If you go back and watch that rematch, if you go back and watch the fight itself, it might change your mind.
maybe I'll rewatch it.
Tank, easy. That was easy.
Wasn't so easy for me watching it live, but yeah, maybe I'll go back and watch it again. Rob, I don't
Let me
think-
ask you a question,
Go ahead.
Lucas,
Yeah.
and be honest.
Okay.
Because a lot of people aren't honest when they do this, especially when they're in our line of work. So be honest.
Okay.
When you were watching that fight, did you at any point in time root for Cruz?
No, there's no.
Be honest.
I'm being honest.
When
Yeah,
you thought he was winning, when you thought, quote unquote, you saw him winning, were you rooting for Cruz even in your head?
No, I wasn't rooting for Cruz. I actually didn't expect Cruz to even hang around. So the fact that he was able to even finish the fight was good for me. I expected him to actually go down pretty quickly. I mean, we're talking about, Gervonta Davis, who was coming off this Leo Santa Cruz knockout. So I'm riding high on Tank, thinking, man, Tank's going to destroy this guy. He's kind of tailor-made for him. Not only was he able to hang around, he was able to actually rock Gervonta on more than one occasion. So, no, I was surprised, and I gave him rounds simply for the fact that he was able to land more effective punches in that round. That's it.
I saw a guy who would.
James, you don't remember him getting rocked? You don't remember Gervonta getting rocked several occasions?
He got hit a few times, yeah, but
he came right back.
Man.
I think it also plays into the fact that you've never even seen really Gervonta Davis in any kind of trouble until that fight. So the first guy to ever see him to even put him on his back heels, and it's
Pitbull Cruz, he's tough. He's tough. He's coming at you, man. And when you got a guy with Tank Davis skills, you can be as tough as you want. You need to land a lot of punches continuously to stop Davis. It's not going to happen. He's just too slick. He's too good of a boxer. My thing was that if Pitbull did anything, it would be just one of those haymakers that caught Tank off guard. And you're not going to catch Tank off guard. He's too good. And so the fight pretty much went like I expected. And you know what? Hats off to Pitbull Cruz. It's the best I can do for him. And you know what? He's got Gamboa now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you'll see a different side of him. He'll probably he's not fighting the same talent level, the same quality fighter as Tank Davis. Tank Davis is top of the game. Gamboa is a little bit slower. Fighting skills have diminished a little bit. You may see a knockout. You may see one of those bolo punches, those haymakers, those big overhand rights, land and slow him down dramatically, and then take him out.
Okay.
It could happen.
Speaking of
I don't see Gamboa stopping him.
No, I can't see Gamboa stopping him.
But yeah, Tank Davis'
outpointing him
name,
maybe, but definitely not stopping him.
But no, you were saying something about Tank, and his name is in the news these days.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about that because I keep hearing that this is going to be the last fight with Mayweather Promotions again.
But where does he go?
But
Where does he go?
Top rank. He's got Golden Boy. Oscar's still building guys really well. I mean, you got to give it to him. Ryan Garcia, big name. I mean, he doesn't have a lot anymore, but the people he is bringing up, he's still bringing up well.
So I actually think it's the opposite effect for Tank in this one. It's the opposite effect of Terrence Crawford, actually. There's more competition on the other side in this division.
So you're thinking like Diazian?
Absolutely think Diazian or somebody like that could get a hold of him. Tank's problem with I'll say this. Tank's problem with Mayweather, and I think his problem overall, and he could be growing more into this, is that Tank feels like as the fighter, he wants more hands-on who he fights and everything. He wants more hands-on in that aspect.
And
He's never been the guy to go out there and say, well, I'm going to take on whoever my management team and whoever they put in front of me. He's always kind of had an opinion of who he'd like to fight and win. And I think that's weighing on him here now. And he's coming back up again. He wants to try to dictate who he gets in the ring.
Yeah, attended to that. I understand that he's not very happy with his next opponent is Rolly Romero. I think that's a fight that he's really not digging, simply because it's not a marquee fight, and that's where he wants to be. Yeah, and you can't blame him. I mean, life is short. Yeah. You got to get those fights in while you got it.
Not a lot of people know who Rolly Romero is, and I think he already knows after the Leo Santa Cruz fight. He's worth more than that, and he wants to get the big fights and get out. Maybe
so now, where does Rolly Romero come in? Where does Romero come in? Is this a mandatory? We're just not really familiar with him.
I think it was just because they had some beef or something outside, like a Twitter beef or something.
It's a fight Mayweather wanted to see because of the style.
Romero is part of Mayweather Promotions, isn't he?
PBC. No, he's PBC.
No, I thought he was training in that same gym at Mayweather in Las Vegas.
I'm not sure.
I don't think he is. I don't know.
I just consider Mayweather Promotions PBC anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not.
Might as well be.
But
unless I see Mayweather Promotions on a top-ranked card or a DAZ card, that's not gonna happen. He's PBC.
So here's the thing, and this kind of brings up like a rapid-fire topic that I had at one point.
Okay.
But here's what I think the problem with the Mayweather situation in regards to Tank, right? Tank wants the bigger fights because he wants to be the biggest draw in boxing, like Canelo. And in order to do that, you have to have the big fights at this juncture, especially in the time of boxing we're in right now. Because to me, unfortunately, there's just not enough compelling stories in boxing these days. There's not. You don't have the compelling stories. We've heard all of them before. How many times do they sit there and promote a Tank fight where they're still going back to his childhood in Baltimore, Maryland? He's not that kid anymore.
I think you're exactly right, and I'm going to add on to it. So he's always, and like you said, he's always wanted to pick who he wanted to fight, right? He had the big fight with Leo Santa Cruz, and then from what it sounds like to me is 2 steps down. No offense to Isaac Cruz, no offense to Rolly Romero, but compared to Leo Santa Cruz, those are steps down in competition. So he's taking steps backwards in his career. That's going to piss anybody off, you know? He's wanted the Lomachenko fight, and guess what? Tio took it. Tio beat him. That could have been on Gervonta Davis's resume, which would have elevated him even further in his boxing career. And his legend would have grown. That's what Gervonta wants. And he can do it. But he's got to get the fights. And I think he's starting to realize that Mayweather's not listening to him. They keep saying, oh, yeah, we'll fight Lomachenko later. And he's not about that, let's milk this shit like Mayweather Pacquiao. He doesn't want to do that. He just wants to get it on, get it over with, get out. You know, find his next big payday.
I agree with you on the statement where Isaac Cruz is not really a big step up fight. I thought Santa Cruz was. I'm a Santa Cruz fan, but I thought that was a big matchup.
For sure.
There was
That's what
some
I was
weird
saying.
quirkiness going on with the weights and the belts and all that. I thought that was a little bit funky because you really don't see two weight divisions
That's weird, yeah.
up for grabs in one fight. That was, I remember that being kind of
I didn't agree
odd.
with that. Yeah.
Well,
But the matchup itself was really good.
Yes.
It was it wasn't a 50-50. I think Gervonta Davis was the favorite there, but pretty decent fight there up until a certain point. But at 135, shit, Gervonta Davis has got Ryan Garcia, the possibility of fighting him. I would say late this year, if not next year, provided that Ryan stays on target and his trajectory doesn't change, because that's just going up.
Yeah.
Ryan Garcia is coming to the party. He's got a fight coming up this weekend or the 9th, right?
Next weekend.
Yeah. So, and that's in Texas. He should do pretty well there, and we'll see what happens after that. It's going to be a big fight. It's going to be a big name, but 135, so crowded.
yeah, but there's other things that the Mayweather camp has done that makes me question what are they doing exactly with Tank, because they not only did like Lucas said, you take the big fight against Santa Cruz, and then to your point, James, you put 2 titles on the line for that fight, but then you make him compete at 140 against Barrios. So that all of that right there makes me question what exactly are they doing with this kid, because you have the matchups there at a decent weight class that he can be dominant in, and you're not taking those fights, but then you're trying to prove yourself by saying, oh, well, he can go up to 140 and take on anybody and win.
And you know what it is? It's because you run out of the names that are in-house. They want to keep it in-house. PBC definitely wants to keep it in-house. He's only going to do business with people that are also PBC fighters. So
yeah,
he's not going to give anybody else some of that money and half of that money. So, and a lot of people aren't willing to do that. I mean, if he wants to go on to bigger and better things, maybe he's right. I think he does need to leave Mayweather Promotions and PBC, whichever one he's with, because I get those two confused. Because for me, they're the same. But either way, I think I'm agreeing with you, really, Rob, because, DAZN and Matchroom Boxing would probably be a better deal for him right now with this current weight class. He'd be able to prove a little bit more. He'd be able to fight the Haney. He'd be able to fight the Ryan Garcia and the Kambosos. He would get those fights. He's not going to get those fights under PBC.
What I wish Tank could do is do what Mayweather did and get you some guys around you and that you can build a relationship with, that are good guys, that are solid, that have good reputations in the sport, and try to run your own promotions. Try to do your own promotion, because he's been pay-per-view now. He's not a huge pay-per-view draw, but he's a decent draw to where he can build it on himself, especially if he wants to dictate who he fights, because Lomachenko ain't scared of him. Ryan Garcia has called him out and says he ain't scared of him. Devin Haney ain't scared of him. None of the top dogs are scared of you. You're absolutely right. Let's see you fight him. Let's see you fight them all now.
I think Tank wants to. I think Tank wants to. I just don't think he's being allowed to. Go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, are we going to go 140 or 135 with Tank? And he's fought at 130 and 140, and he's been all over the place. And I don't think that's really doing a lot for him. I really think he needs to set himself up in a particular weight division and clean it out. And do it like unifications after unification and go for the undisputed. And it's just not happening. And I think that's something that they should really take a look at. But 140 is pretty solid. I'd love to see him fight Jose Cepeda at 140. I think that would be a pretty nice match.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a lot better than what we saw against Barrios.
For sure.
I think, yeah. Well, Barrios had to go up in weight, right?
Well, Barrios had to go up in weight, right?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
I think Tank wants to. I think Tank wants to. I just don't think he's being allowed to.
Yeah, my question is, are we going to go 140 or 135 with Tank? And
No, Barrios is at
No, I
140.
think he's a solid 140. He went up when he faced
He went up
Keith
against
Thurman.
Keith Thurman. He
He
just
went up
went
to
up.
147. But no, he's at 140. So I think that's a solid matchup. And then just so you guys know, Jose, I just brought him up. Chon Cepeda. He did something kind of off the radar and won a couple of weeks ago in Mexico in one of the border towns. It was a keep busy, and I believe he won by knockout. It was a short fight, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 rounds, but the guy's keeping busy. Fought at 140, looked good, and just saying, maybe Berchelt should have taken that route too.
Eh?
Well, he just won his last fight on ESPN too. Cepeda did.
And I got Barrios confused because he moved up to fight Thurman. That's
Right.
my confusion.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have any rapid fire? I think now's a good time to kind of wrap it up. And kind of stretch.
No, because that's what I was wanting to touch on. Everything I wanted to touch on was that.
So
The only thing I got for you guys is Alvis Rodriguez. Southpaw 140 is back and just cleaned out a guy named Juan Velasco. Was a pretty decent fighter, but I was just thinking Top Rank has got to be kicking themselves in the ass right now because Alvis Rodriguez is serious. He does everything well. He was varying the speed of his jab, using the power left, very, very effectively to the body. I mean, I was just thinking, man, this kid, he's 18 or I don't have my glasses on, 13, 14, 15 fights. He's looking fantastic. He's a big 140 and just looked great. He looked fantastic. It's a pretty decent card there that night. That was Michelle Rivera and another, the Tim Sue card. So Michelle Rivera at 135, and then Alvis Rodriguez fought before him. And I was just really, really impressed.
Yep. Good to see him back. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Top Rank is definitely probably kicking himself in the ass over that shit. But oh man, guys, if you had before we end the show, if you had to guess whether Gervonta Davis is going to be staying with Mayweather Promotions after his next fight, would you say yes or no? Rob?
I would say yes.
Yeah, James? Yes.
He's not going nowhere. Floyd not stupid. He said he wanted to be pay-per-view. Floyd gave him pay-per-view. At this juncture, he's saying he wants more top fights. Guess what? Floyd's not letting him go. Floyd's getting behind the kid 110%. Floyd will get the kid the fights that he wants.
I don't know, because eventually these things come to a head, right? We've seen it with Terrence Crawford. It was constant, problems of not getting matches that you want, and then it hits, and you finally say, I'm cutting ties. How long have we been hearing from Gervonta Davis? I'm sick of Mayweather Promotions. I'm sick of not getting the fights that I want. It has to come to a head at some point, right?
Again, Mayweather rectified that situation by making the kid pay-per-view.
But who can he face at pay-per-view? That's my point, is we're running out of people to see him against. Rolly Romero's good for the little Twitter beef, but no one actually cares about that fight.
Right. But that's why, Tank is causing the turmoil, and Mayweather's going to listen. Trust me. Mayweather's not letting the kid go because, you know why? He staked his name on it. And you know how Mayweather feels about his name.
They're not going to listen, though, because PBC does not do business normally with other promotions.
Not PBC, Lucas.
Mayweather doesn't do business with other promotions. He likes to do in-house stuff or stuff without Heyman. But...
And you can't say that completely because PBC, as of late, has been doing business with other promotions.
We're talking about only spare, rare occasions. We're talking about enormous fights like Wilder Fury. Other than that, what else is there?
They tried to do business with Canelo.
You say try.
Well,
They
but
tried.
you got to seal
They
the deal.
tried.
Trying don't count.
I thought we were
Canelo
going to get
wasn't
through
happy
this.
with the matchups.
I thought we were going to get through the show without mentioning the word Canelo.
We
It is.
We
But-
can't go through no show without mentioning Canelo. No, it
That's
never
true.
happened.
That is so true. But I do want to say I think he'll stay, and I look at Gervonta Davis in the very near future being a quote unquote junior Canelo. I mean, just pay-per-view all the time, big fights, bright lights in big city.
Big knockouts.
I think that's a road forward. Yep, for Gervonta Davis, 35 or 40, wherever he decides to settle. I don't think you'll ever see him fight at 130 again. But 35 or 40, that's the man. That's the man to beat. Like Canelo is. That's the man to beat.
Hopefully
And
he
look,
stays
let me
at
say
35.
this also too, with a guy like Tank. When he's saying he wants bigger fights, you have to listen because the kid needs solid motivation. And to me, if he's saying he wants bigger fights, there could be an issue there with these fights coming up where there's lack of motivation. And in Tank, you don't need that. You don't.
Tank needs to call out the winner of Haney-Kambosos. That's what needs to happen.
Kambosos, yeah, I was just thinking that.
He needs to make a case for it, and he needs to make Mayweather, do business. But I'm just being honest, guy. I don't think that's going to happen. Do you? Hit us up here below. You can comment on it. Hit at Heavy Bag Boxing on all your social media. But this is the end. This was Tough Talk, and we'll see you again next Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Have a